What's up, everybody, and welcome into another episode of Goal Line Dynasty Football. Our last episode, we went over some buy low running backs, so it's only natural to go over some buy low wide receivers today. But before we get into that video, Tyler, how we doing, buddy?
I'm great. Glad to hop into another pretty much not really rankings video, but find some dive-ins in the rough here. I love talking about my wide receivers. It's tough to talk about running backs. These guys are a lot easier and a lot more fun and a lot tougher to buy in most spots. So let's hop right into it.
Well, the good news is we're going to be going over some guys today that might be a little bit easier to buy than the average bear, as they say. So let's just jump right on into it. My first guy, you know him, you might love him, you might hate him. It's Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver Diontae Johnson, the lesser popular wide receiver out of the Pittsburgh Steelers for Dynasty right now. Diontae Johnson is a screaming value right now. You could get Diontae Johnson for, I would say, 2 second-round picks right now. They don't even necessarily need to be high second-round picks. You could probably give up 205 in a future second-round pick, and unless that person is like hell-bent on having Diontae on their squad in 2023, you're probably at least going to tempt them with that offer. People that have Diontae Johnson are so frustrated right now. He had 0 touchdowns last year. He was wide receiver like 32 overall or something like that. Just not a good year at all. But the stat line was perfectly fine. The only part about the stat line that sucked was his lack of touchdowns. But if you go back 2 years ago, right, Diontae Johnson had it was 144 targets 2 years ago, and he had 147 targets this year. 0 touchdowns this year, 7 touchdowns in the previous year. And then last year, he had over 160 targets and he had 8 touchdowns. We know Diontae Johnson can score touchdowns. We know he's going to score touchdowns. He just happened to skip out on every single one of them in 2023, right? So if we apply the same logic to his 2021 and from his 2020 and his 2021 seasons, right? And if you apply that logic to the 2022 season with the amount of targets he got, he should have had about 7 touchdowns, right? That's about the average of what we could expect there. If he had 7 touchdowns, he would have been the wide receiver 17 overall in PPR in the 2022 season. Now, I'm not saying that you can expect him to be the wide receiver 17, but you're buying him as a mid to low end wide receiver 3, and he is probably at worst a safe low end wide receiver 2, maybe upside wide receiver 2 going into the 2023 season. Kenny Pickett was a rookie, didn't quite look right. Najee Harris, we talked about him in our last video. Najee Harris didn't look right over the first half of the season. George Pickens was getting up to speed. Pat Freiermuth is still young. I mean, this entire offense is going to click in 2023, and it's all going to start with Diontae Johnson getting his head out of his ass and learning to get back into pay dirt. If he gets into pay dirt even 6 or 7 times, he's going to pay big dividends, finish at worst as a top 24 wide receiver in 2023. And for the low price of those 2 second-round picks, I'm buying him everywhere I can right now.
Yeah, I love that call on Diontae. I mean, there was a time where he finished as a top 10 wide receiver. There was a time when people probably considered him, a top 15, top 12 dynasty wide receiver. And we probably would have been screaming to, sell him high. But he is a guy who we know is going to be an absolute target hog in that offense. And as they start to put more faith in Kenny Pickett and let him sling the ball all over the field, Diontae is going to be the guy. I think he's clearly more talented than George Pickens. There's a lot of people who would argue with me on that. I'm not a believer. I think Diontae is by far and away the best receiver in that offense. And as Kenny Pickett improves, Deontay's fantasy points are going to improve. He's a guy that you're not necessarily worried about the age cliff quite yet. He's still very relevant in fantasy football. And for that price, yeah, give him to me all day long. If anybody's willing to sell him for that, hopefully, I'm taking that deal.
Yeah, and don't forget, I mean, Chase Claypool is out of there right now. There's not really, I mean, obviously Pat Freiermuth is there, but there's no legitimate wide receiver 3 in Pittsburgh, and I think that's going to be a pretty big deal, right? Like if there was going to be one guy outside of Pat F that I thought was going to be taking, those red zone targets away from Diontae, it was going to be Chase Claypool, which obviously he's not there anymore. So I would expect, more of the same from him. He's seen at minimum 144 targets 3 seasons in a row. Like, I shouldn't have to say anything else besides that stat line to get anybody on board for buying this guy for a couple of second-round picks. I mean, 144 targets 3 years in a row. That's a big deal. That is a huge deal in fantasy football. It's all about having the opportunity, right? Whether it's a receiver, a running back, a tight end, whatever it is, targets equal points in the long run. So that's what we're going to target. We're targeting those targets. We're getting Diontae Johnson. And yeah, that's all I got to say. So Ty, who's your first buy low guy of the day?
My first buy low guy is a guy who I feel like should be kind of obvious, but as I'm looking into it, maybe not really. So Marquise Hollywood Brown, he's a guy who went off in the first 6 games of the season when D-Hop wasn't there. Had 3 games of 20-plus points and didn't see less than 10 points. So, a great showing without D-Hop there. And D-Hop is leaving, as far as we know, as far as we can tell. Hollywood had those 5 games that he missed, and that really hurt his finishing stat line. He finished down near wide receiver 44. But when he only played 12 games, I mean, on a points per game basis, I mean, he's solid for you. I mean, I know we didn't see a lot when he came back from that injury, but with D-Hop gone, like, there's only opportunity for this guy. He's 25 years old. I know Kyler Murray is going to be out for however many games in the beginning of the season. And it's going to take that offense however long to get back to speed. But honestly, even with a backup quarterback in Colt McCoy, who it currently is, could obviously change by then. But he's going to rely on the one and only real target that Arizona has in Marquise Brown. I mean, obviously they have a good tight end room, but Marquise Brown is going to be the guy. He was the guy in Baltimore with Lamar Jackson, and he's going to be the guy, I think, without a D-Hop there. I mean, he's just going to have targets on targets on targets, the same thing we always talk about. A 25-year-old guy who you're going to have for a while on your roster if you want him. He's currently ranked as wide receiver 32 on Keep Trade Cut, underneath guys like, those rookies, Quentin Johnson, Jordan Addison, right around Christian Kirk and Diontae. So I think him and Diontae are pretty much in a similar tier. And I think Diontae is also screening by low. So, I'm hoping you're going to agree with me on this one, but let's see how you feel.
I do agree with you on this one. Marquise Brown, he makes me a little bit nervous for the 2023 season just because of the whole Kyler Murray's probably not going to play the first half of the season thing. But with that being said, they're probably going to ship out DeAndre Hopkins. Rondale Moore is not a legitimate threat, right? And they really don't have anyone else in the wide receiver department. And I think their wide receiver 3 right now is Zach Pascal, based off of recent free agency, if we're not counting DeAndre Hopkins in there, right? They have a good tight end tandem between Zach Ertz and Trey McBride, but that helps out a guy like Marquise Brown, right? Like, that opens the next level of the field by having that dynamic duo at the tight end position. I don't know what to expect at the quarterback position for Arizona in 2023. I'm not going to pretend like I know what they're doing for a backup quarterback while Kyler Murray's out, right? But it's probably not going to be amazing. But with that being said, Marquise Brown is going to be the unquestioned wide receiver 1 in Arizona from day one if DeAndre Hopkins is shipped out, and he likely is going to be shipped out. So I really like this call a lot. I would value him in a very similar light to Diontae Johnson. I would say that the ceiling is not quite as high for 2023 per se, but I think that by the end of the year, when Kyler Murray's back and he's in full swing and Arizona is doing their thing, I think by the midway point of the season when that happens, Marquise Brown and Diontae Johnson are going to be putting up a very similar weekly fantasy production, right? And with Marquise Brown, the sky really is the limit, right? Like, I like Diontae Johnson's ceiling a little bit better, but that's just because of the quarterback play. But Marquise Brown, I mean, he could see 10 plus targets every single game in this offense, right? Because there's nothing else going on. So I like the call. I really do.
Well, good. I'm glad we can agree on something. I mean, I think when it comes to between those two guys, Hollywood and Diontae, I think I'd probably prefer Diontae over Hollywood just because, we've seen that target share over 3 years straight without any real significant injuries. So slightly Diontae over Hollywood, but again, same tier for me.
So my next guy, I don't know if you're gonna love it or you're gonna hate it. Tyler Lockett, dude. Tyler Lockett, the 30-and-a-half-year-old receiver in Seattle, is just an absolute screaming buy right now. Over the last 4 seasons, do you know how many times Tyler Lockett didn't finish inside the top 15 for fantasy wide receivers in PPR formats? The answer
it's 1 or 0.
The answer is 0.
Yeah.
The answer is 0. He has been a top 15, not 20, not 25, a top 15 fantasy wide receiver in 4 consecutive years, right? He shares the field with DK Metcalf. He's never going to get top coverage, ever. He had a really good rapport showing with Geno Smith in 2022. That's not going to change in 2023. Tyler Lockett, just because he's 30 doesn't mean he's lost a step. I don't know about you, but watching Tyler Lockett play this year, it looked like watching Tyler Lockett play 3 years ago. He still looks perfectly fine. He's holding up perfectly fine. 117 targets in 2022. Ideally, I would like that to be a bit more. But when you share the field with DK and your quarterback's Geno, I mean, all things considered, 117 is going to be pretty good. And the best thing about Tyler Lockett is in the consensus. He is currently the wide receiver 52, which is the equivalent, if I'm not mistaken, to the 306. 306. I mean, dude, if you can send any third-round pick for Tyler Lockett, if you're a contender in any league, anywhere, and you can send a third-round pick for Tyler Lockett, don't even think twice and just do it. Even if you have to send, I would consider buying low on Tyler Lockett, sending even as far as the 209. Because think about it. The chances of him finishing in the top 15 for a 5th year in a row, probably low at this point, right? He's going to be 31 this season. But the chances of him finishing outside of the top 25, probably small. And for the cost of the 210 or whatever I said, yeah, I'll take that on any contending roster.
Dude, I personally love it. I think Tyler Lockett could easily be a top 25 receiver for the next 3 years, until he's 33 years old. Like, Seattle loves him. I wouldn't doubt that. He's been there his entire career, right? He was drafted by Seattle, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember him playing for any other uniform, so I'm assuming that's the case. But dude, give me him all day long. He's been so consistent over his entire career. He's like a premium Brandon Cooks almost. He's like the gold standard of the Brandon Cooks. Like, so underrated, so undervalued, nonstop. I don't think like you said, it doesn't look like he's lost a step at all. Like, I don't see anything to make me believe other than the fact that he doesn't really run after the catch, which is kind of funny. But literally will just catch the ball and lay down in the middle of the field. Just like,
it's so funny. It's so funny that you say that though, because like, dude, his yards per catch, 12 over the last 4 years, 12.3, 16.1, 10.5, whatever, but like 12.9, 16.9, like, you would think that he's getting some, like yards after the catch there, but no, you're totally right, dude. If you watch a highlight reel of Tyler Lockett, more than half the time he catches and just falls down. It's like the funniest thing.
It's literally like, unless there's a clear path to the end zone or the sideline, like he's just laying down there and not caring about the extra yards, which is awesome in a 30-year-old receiver. I don't care about that. I'd rather him lay down and not get hurt, and not miss 4 or 5 games like even some of these other younger guys we're talking about. But I mean, I'd probably send my next 3 third-round picks for Tyler Lockett if I'm a competing roster, because it's like he can be a wide receiver 2 or 3 for you. That's so sneaky that nobody is going to complain about. Like, nobody's going to go to your league and say like, "Wow, this is robbery. This needs to be reversed," or anything like that for Tyler Lockett, as opposed to like these other guys. Like, think about like if you wanted to offer Tyler Lockett for Mike Evans, like, a lot of Mike Evans owners might look at you and be like, "You're a jerk off. Like, you're not getting that for that. Like, get out of here." And the reality is, like, Tyler Lockett is probably going to outproduce Mike Evans next year and the year after that, when they're both old and gray. So, like, yeah, I love the Tyler Lockett price. Yeah, give him to me in every spot, just like a lot of these guys.
You know what the really funny thing is too, and like, I know we refer to Keep Trade Cut a lot. We talk shit on Keep Trade Cut consensus, right? But in all reality, I do love Keep Trade Cut because it gives you a glimpse into the consensus. It tells you where other people's minds are. And even though we don't always agree with it, it is a really helpful tool for Dynasty, right? But listen to this. So Adam Thielen, right? Maybe the value is lacking a little behind here because the Carolina signing is 24 hours fresh. But the difference between Mike Evans and Tyler Lockett is adding on a guy like Adam Thielen, a guy with similar caliber in value to Adam Thielen. So, like, imagine flipping Mike Evans if you're competing. Imagine flipping Mike Evans for Tyler Lockett and Adam Thielen or a guy of similar value. Like, you could probably get Tyler Lockett and that extra late second, early third round pick for Mike Evans. I would do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer. It's literally just like a name value thing, I think, with a lot of people. Tyler Lockett hasn't been like the number one receiver in his offense for a long time, but he's still always been just a complete baller. And it's fun because he's short and fast, and I love that about receivers when they can succeed that way because, you know, who doesn't like to root for the little guy?
Yeah, Tyler Lockett's awesome. But I know you probably got an awesome guy here as our fourth wide receiver. So who's that going to be?
Yeah, I like to think he's awesome, you know. I called him a buy low at this time last year too, and then he came into the season, flashed, and then sucked, and then got hurt. But he's really young. He's only 23 years old. Rashod Bateman. As far as we know, I mean, yes, there's a great chance that Baltimore ends up signing or drafting a receiver this year, rather. I don't know. He's in the same spot he was last year, you know. I mean, he's ranked as the wide receiver 37. Nobody's really, you know, looking at him, giving him looks. So I like the player. I liked him coming out of college. I liked the draft capital he got. I liked the landing spot. And since they shipped Hollywood Brown away, like, I can't not want a Rashod Bateman on my roster just because I feel like I don't even know if it's tough to call him a buy low as much as like a hold. You know, my head spins about this guy. Like, what is he worth? But at the current price he's going for, he's down a little bit lower than these guys that we were just talking about. I mean, I would trade. He's ranked right next to Isaiah Pacheco. I would trade Pacheco for Bateman in a heartbeat. Mike Williams, I trade for Rashod Bateman in a heartbeat. Mike Evans probably, if I'm not competing, definitely. A lot of these guys, like Algier, I'm probably trading for Rashod Bateman on a rebuilder. Like, I think a lot of these guys, I would just rather have Bateman's profile than him. Like, it says he's the 103rd football player as far as Superflex ranking goes on Keep Trade Cut. It's hard for me to imagine that there's 102 players that I'm going to want above him. I feel like he should be ranked more in like the, you know, 80 to like low 80s, high 70s range, more near those guys that we were talking about, like in a similar tier.
Yeah, I don't disagree with Rashod Bateman. He's not a guy that I'm going out and really going balls to the wall to acquire. But if the price is right, the price is right. You know, people that drafted Rashod Bateman are kind of getting fed up with it. You know, we've gone the last 2 seasons now, not really any production. It's not really his fault. It's not really his fault at all. I mean, Marquise Brown was between Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews back in the 2021 season. There really wasn't a hell of a lot of room for Rashod Bateman to do much. And if memory serves correct, I think he was hurt that year as well. So everything was just kind of working against him. And then this past year also hurt, right? I think it's safe to assume that, especially if Baltimore keeps Lamar Jackson, I think they're going to, you know, kind of put a Band-Aid on the situation by getting him a first-round wide receiver this year. I would be very surprised to see Baltimore walk away from this draft without a guy like Jordan Addison or Zay Flowers or maybe even Jalen Hyatt, Josh Downs, someone like that. But Rashod Bateman could be the wide receiver one on this offense, even with a guy like that coming in. Right. We haven't seen the full opportunity from Bateman, but we have seen flashes. We have seen him perform really well when his number is called in limited snaps over the last several years. Right. So I do like this call. I want to run something by you, though. So in a 1-for-1 deal in Superflex leagues this year, would you trade away pick 204 for Rashod Bateman?
Yes.
Okay.
100%. I would have him over Jalen Hyatt, Josh Downs, Zay Flowers. I think I would have him about even with Zay Flowers. So it's kind of weird to say, but I think I would almost spend a late first on Rashod Bateman, like the 111, 112, maybe. Like, that's actually weird to say, but it's possible.
Well, see, that's how you know that you want to buy him low, because you value him a little bit higher than the consensus, which is perfectly fine. Like get your guys, whatever. But 204, I would take that deal as well. I would take Bateman over the 204 in super flex leagues this year. And the reason why is because that 204 spot, in my opinion, around 15 or 16 overall in super flex leagues this year, that's kind of when a really big tier break happens, right? Like that's when we're using our scratch off tickets on tight ends like Dalton Kincaid and Darnell Washington. Either one of them could be awesome, but tight ends, rookie tight ends, they sit on your roster for at least 2 seasons before they do anything worth a damn, right? So that's a long con right there. If you're fed up with having Rashod Bateman over the last 2 years and you draft a tight end this year, you're basically just drafting Rashod Bateman because you're waiting 2 years to see any sort of production, right? And then after that, like I'm looking at our mock draft that we did a few weeks ago, like Devon Achane, Tajay Spears, Zach Evans, Cedric Tillman, Hendon Hooker, Kendre Miller. Like I'm taking Rashod Bateman over all of these guys. So if I can offer anything 204 or later, maybe even 203. 203, that's when you kind of get me there. But 204 or later, if I can offer that up for Rashod Bateman and that gets accepted, I would be very, very happy. And I'm not even really super high on Rashod Bateman, but for that price, I would definitely agree that he's a buy low.
I mean, for me, it's like when you look at this rookie draft, once you get into the like early second round, that 201, you're kind of hoping that a receiver of his profile falls to you, a guy who's he's got a big enough frame to play in the NFL. I mean, obviously the injuries are a concern at this point after 2 seasons, but he was drafted at the tail end of the first round. Like that's what you're hoping for in the early to mid second of this year. So eliminate the risk. I mean, he's a guy who just hasn't had the opportunity to produce due to injury. Like you said, he flashed. So yeah, I would take him over those guys that are going to get the mid second round draft capital to late second, early third round capital. I'm taking him over all of those guys, even those running backs. Like, are those running backs lottery tickets? Yes. And would I, at this time, at week 6, at week 6 during this season, am I probably going to regret it and not taking those guys? Maybe, but I mean, I eliminated the risk. Like, they took it and they swung and hit it. Kudos to them, but I think I would be winning as far as the value goes right now.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. Last guy I want to talk about here. He is the lowest ranked guy out of all 5 of these. Nobody talks about him anymore, and that's what makes him the perfect buy low. You could probably get him for around the same cost as you could with Tyler Lockett, except this guy is only 25 years old and is only 1 season removed from a top 22 finish, right? He does not have legitimate wide receiver 1 upside. He has low-end wide receiver 2 upside. I would say fairly safe to bet that if he plays a full 17 games, he could very easily finish inside the top 36, making him at least a wide receiver 3. Darnell Mooney, and I say this without a lot of data to back up my position on this. Fully transparent. This is a complete gut call here with Darnell Mooney. Right.
I love it. By the way, you don't need statistics to back it up, dude. Sometimes you get a feeling. Look at Pat Frymuth for me, dude. Biggest win,
dude. I still remember making fun of you, dude. Like you took Pat F. It was like 108 or 109 in that draft, and I blew you up in that group chat. I was like, Tyler, what are you doing, man? It's Pat F. He's supposed to go like 204, 205. What a reach. And I mean, he's been perfectly fine for you ever since, right? Like
there's probably a couple guys that looking back, I'd definitely rather have over him, but I mean, it is what it is, dude. I still eat their crow when they told me he was bad.
Dude, get your guy, man. Get your guy. That's what you did. And that's what we're going to do with Darnell Mooney. Here is how I'm going to justify this. 1, he's the same cost as Tyler Lockett. If you can get a 25-year-old receiver that's only 1 season removed from a top 22 finish, you can get that for 210 at the earliest, maybe even down to like 302, 303, send multiple 3rd-round picks, whatever. If you can get Darnell Mooney for any of those prices, that's a perfect buy low. And I know DJ Moore's in town. I know Cole Kmet's there. And Chicago's quarterback thinks run before pass, some would argue. And that's fine. We're not getting Darnell Mooney for wide receiver 1 upside. We're getting him for depth. We're getting him as a wide receiver 3. We're getting him as a bye week filler because there is always room on your roster for a guy like that. He's going to have spike weeks. He's definitely going to have spike weeks. And I think he's going to be a relatively safe option because he's going to see somewhere between 5 and 7 targets any given week. With DJ Moore on the field, Darnell Mooney is never going to face top coverage. With DJ Moore on the field, Darnell Mooney is going to be able to take the top off of the opposing defenses, and that is where he does his best work. Not to mention, we have Chase Claypool in there as well, and Cole Kmet. Darnell Mooney is a small, fast guy, much like Tyler Lockett. He's going to get lost on this field, absolutely lost on this field, and he's going to reap the rewards. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised. So Tyler Lockett, right? I could kind of compare these two. They play a very similar game. Darnell Mooney, his first 3 years in the league, hasn't been anything super impressive, but he's shown flashes. Tyler Lockett, same scenario. He went through the first 3 or 4 years of his career before finally breaking out at the age of 25 or 26, and now he's playing perfectly fine into his 30s. So, yeah. Am I saying Darnell Mooney is going to be the next Tyler Lockett? No. Am I saying it's possible? Absolutely. And for the low cost of a couple third-round picks or the 210, I'm taking that every single time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that, like, for those who think that, oh, Darnell Mooney's not going to see anything in this offense with DJ Moore and Chase Claypool, like, you're wrong. At the same time, I mean, he's not going to get those 140 targets, right? But I think he's going to be a lot more efficient with those targets. Justin Fields has been improving. I think he's a much better quarterback now than he was even at the beginning of this past season. I think that, yeah, while he is going to look to run the ball, I mean, there's going to be opportunities all over that field for Darnell Mooney. I mean, he's going to see the cornerback 3. You know, he's going to be able to run down the slot, you know, and take a freaking fade for 75 yards because every single linebacker and safety is focused on DJ Moore and Chase Claypool and not burning them. You know, so I'm definitely good with this. I do like this one as your gut call. I mean, he's a guy. I mean, he didn't play in 5 games this year. He didn't have like a terrible season. I mean, but he was playing with an inexperienced quarterback. When it got later on into what the season that he played in, you know, towards week 11, he did start putting up those, you know, 13, 14-point games, and even had a 17-point game in there. So he's a guy who probably is going to be a boom or bust guy for a lot of people. But I mean, those guys have their places on fantasy rosters. I mean, look at what Mike Williams did in the past 2 seasons before this one, you know? So, I mean, if you can get a supreme boomer bust guy that's going to be in what I think is an elite offense this year, yeah, definitely. Like I said, or like you said, rather, it's not the wide receiver 1 upside that you're looking at. It's the safe wide receiver 2, high end wide receiver 3 that you're buying. And yeah, for the prices that you mentioned, if he's down near Tyler Lockett, yeah, I'm buying him for the same price. I'm sending all 3 of my third-round picks probably for the next 3 years, even on a rebuilding roster. I don't care if it's in the 301, 301, and 301. Like, in reality, I'd probably rather have Darnell Mooney over the combination of whoever's going to be there for those 3 guys. Like, I'm probably going to whiff on those picks anyways. So, like, if I have the 301s, then if for 3 years in a row, then I'm bad at Dynasty anyways. So, yeah, give me Marquise Brown over all those prices, or not Marquise Brown, fucking Darnell Mooney over
Darnell Mooney. We knew what you meant, but dude, that's the thing. Like, I think, in my opinion, people overvalue 3rd and 4th round picks in rookie drafts. Like, I know in our league, we do a 5th round, which is honestly absurd because most leagues that I've ever joined, we only go up to 4 rounds. I don't know why we do 5. It's fun. I like having the 5th because those are just complete dart throws, right? Like, it's kind of fun. But people overvalue 3rd and 4th round picks. In my opinion, even if it's 301, you can tell me that my 2025 pick is the 301 already, and I'm still going to trade it away probably the second that I'm allowed to. Like, I almost never pick in the 3rd and 4th round. It's fun to do. It's really fun to do because you find these guys, you believe in these guys, and you're like, dude, this is the guy. He's going to do something. He doesn't do anything. Most of them don't do anything that you get in the 3rd and the 4th round, right? So trade them away. Trade your late round draft picks for guys that have done it before, that just don't get quite the recognition that they deserve. Trade for Darnell Mooney. Trade for Tyler Lockett. Trade for Rashod Bateman, right? Like, just just do it. Stop holding on to those picks. And find a guy like Darnell Mooney. It doesn't have to be Darnell Mooney, but find a guy that you just look at and you say, I don't know what it is, but there's something's telling me this guy's getting it, right? But let's make sure something still backs it up, right? Like Darnell Mooney has been there before. Let's not just say, okay, this is Zach Pascal's year to be the wide receiver 2 of the league, right? Like let's chill on that. But anyway, if you take nothing else from this video, flip those late round picks for those guys that are just way criminally undervalued right now.
I have, out of my 6 dynasty leagues, I probably have like maybe 3 third-round picks, maybe 4. I think I have 4 literal third and fourth round picks, like combined over the next 3 years. Like so that means I've traded away over 90% of my third and fourth round picks. It's like I'm never gonna hit on them anyways, and if I did, like I'm gonna be flipping that for somebody else. Like okay, boo-hoo, whatever. Like if I trade that away and somebody else hits on it, like congratulations, I'm probably not gonna have picked that guy anyways. Like
it's the perfect path to get depth for your team. Like over the last 3, maybe 4 days, I traded away a 5th round pick and a 4th round pick. And I got DJ Chark, who we have no idea where he's signing at. I'm hoping Carolina for selfish reasons, right? DJ Chark, dude, even if he lands in Carolina or he lands somewhere where he could be a top 2 wide receiver in the offense, DJ Chark is nothing more than a bye week filler, right? I'd also traded away a 4th round pick for Hayden Hurst. He's just my backup tight end, so I have someone behind Mark Andrews. But the fact of the matter is, I would rather have DJ Chark and Hayden Hurst right now than my 4th and my 5th round pick next year. Like, I don't care. So take the depth, buy your guys, do whatever. That's going to do it for us here on Goal Line Dynasty, because I could rant about this forever because I hate those late round picks, and I know you do too. But yeah, hopefully we found some good value here. There are plenty of buy low wide receivers right now. And if we didn't talk about your favorite buy low wide receiver in this video, leave a comment down below. Let us know who should Tyler and I be going out and buying as wide receivers on good value right now. And maybe we'll bring it up in the next video as well if there's anyone that you guys point out and we're like, oh yeah, like that's a good point. But just really intrigued to see where all of our viewers are in that. Not only that, but hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We really appreciate it. This last weekend here, one of our videos blew up. We say blow up, right? It had like 1,000 videos. That's blowing up to us. We're pretty pumped to see that, right? So one of the videos went up to 1,000 views, and we got like 10 or 12 subscribers over the weekend. And to Tyler and I mean, dude, that's fame right there. Like we are absolutely pumped about that. So we really do appreciate everyone watching these videos, liking, subscribing, sharing, and yeah, thanks for coming along with us here, guys.
Yeah, man. I mean, we celebrate every time we get like a single subscriber. Like, it's pretty cool to think, there's 10 to 12 guys who this weekend said, yeah, we want to hear them talk more. So, yeah, appreciate the support, and can't believe you believe my crazy stuff sometimes, but it works out in a lot of situations. Mikey is a lot more technical than I am, but we make a good team, and I'm glad to see the channel growing. So.
And it's really cool. If you ever make a take that's really outrageous and you screw someone over, guys, I know where he lives. Anyway, with that being said, thanks for tuning in on Goal Line Dynasty, and we will see you next time.